everyone. I see we have John Comics with Kids, Brandon. Victoria can't make it today, so I am going to bring in my other co-host for the All New-Wolverine, Justin. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up, Haley? I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk some Wolverine, and I appreciate you being willing to team up with me here and dive into this thing.
I am so excited. This is my first, every time reading All New Wolverine, I really didn't have any context for Laura Kinney at all. So this is like, I went in totally blind and then now I'm good, and obsessed.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. And I haven't had much history on the character either, other than like the current Hickman stuff. So this was definitely, a nice, like, deeper dive into her history and a little bit more of just getting her personality, getting an understanding of who she is. So yeah, I really excited to dive into this.
Yeah, this was your first time reading this, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
First
awesome.
time.
I love it because
Yep.
usually you're doing rereads, I feel like oftentimes.
I have recently, yeah. But yeah, this is Tom Taylor. Like, I can't believe I didn't take more time to read this sooner. So
I'm excited to talk about it. I'm going to say what's up to the chat.
yeah.
Brother John Comics. Hey.
Another John.
Jason.
Jason, what's up?
Victoria, you can't trust anyone who doesn't fall in love with Laura immediately, completely. All right, so let's jump in. Let's see how I can, like, my first time
showing some slides.
Yes. Okay, so I loved how Tom Taylor, actually, first, let's dive into our first impressions of this before I even go into this.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, you're gonna have to bear with me. This is my first time doing slideshows for a deep dive. So, yeah, what were your first impressions of the first 6 issues? How are you feeling about X-23, Laura?
Yeah, so like we were saying, like I've never had a chance to really deep dive the character other than what was new, and I know that folks like you, Victoria, Sheena, JP collects, John, a handful, Jason, even a bunch of people talking about this run specifically, just to, that this is definitely just a great run to check out. I'm a big fan of Tom Taylor, as I mentioned, and so yeah, I was like ready, and you have the omnibus. Like, I want that omnibus. Like, I really am close
it's
to.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, I keep telling V like I'm adding it to my cart. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I wanted to get a deal because I know that there's like opportunities to get a deal for it.
Yes, in stock trades. That's where I got it from because it was like 40% off or more.
Yeah,
so
that's a great deal, and it's beautiful. So yeah, this series, at least the first 6 issues, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's action packed, it's heartfelt, it's got some great comedy scenes as well. And ultimately, this was like a little bit of it reminded me of like an Avengers movie in a way, because there were like different issues that had come up, and there were a lot of different like characters that had shown up, not necessarily as main characters along the way, but like people that she'd go to like, solve one thing or another. So I don't know, it just kind of reminded me of like that Avengers movie vibe, and kind of like, epic in a way. And so, yeah, I'm glad to, take the time to read this. I know you said you're binging a lot of it already, and I don't blame you. Like I waited until this week to read it. Like, I know we talked about it for a little while, and I was like, I wanted to have it fresh in my mind. So I waited up until these last couple of days to really read through it. And now I'm like, oh, I could easily turn to the next page right now, but I waited. But yeah, I will read on for sure.
Well, and Tom Taylor does such a good job with how he ends his issues. So it's typically on this kind of cliffhanger where you're like, oh, I want to know more. So you're getting oftentimes these other characters that make it feel really epic and expansive at the end of an issue. So you're like, oh, and then you're like, I want to see where this goes. So I really loved that aspect because for whatever reason, I wasn't anticipating for them to expand the world, for him to expand the world in which we're getting all of these other characters. That makes it feel kind of like an Avengers film.
Totally.
I really loved, I think overall it felt really action packed, but then it also felt heartfelt as well, which is just typical Tom Taylor. I feel like he's really good at bringing in those moments of comic relief, and then brings it back to this like emotional tie where you're like, oh, yes, I love these characters.
Yep.
Jason saying that he needs issue 2. That is issue so expensive because that's the first appearance of Gabby.
Yeah. I want all of them. I don't think I own any of the issues, and I'm like, the covers are beautiful, the story is beautiful, the interior art is beautiful. I'm like, oof, now but that's where I'm like, well, I'll just get the Omni. I'll get the omnibus. I'll be happy.
Victoria has a complete single issue run. Oh, I am jealous. Justin, I'm with you. I want single issues now too. I'm like, I'm gonna just grab a few. I was just at my comic shop and I went to go look and they didn't have any. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's fine. But okay, I'm gonna pull up the slides now.
Yep.
And so I also don't really have a lot of background on Wolverine. So this would like seeing Wolverine pop in these kind of flashback scenes in the very beginning to set up Laura was, I think, a really great choice to showcase that legacy. It's a really great way of setting up where she's feeling. They're talking about how she didn't kill someone and she's like apologizing to Logan. And we also get where he's like, that's what you were made for, but you're fighting that. And I thought that was such a beautiful way of like showing this kind of redemptive arc that she's kind of setting on. That's where we're starting off with her. Yeah,
absolutely. And that was definitely something that had kind of stood with me the entire 6 issues, is just her going against the grain of what she had initially been designed for. And it was nice to see Wolverine here in the beginning, being like the mentor that he's been in a way, and really like reassuring her that, hey, it's okay. It's okay that you didn't kill when when the initial plan would be to kill. And that's, you're able to fight that. And that's, I just thought it was a nice kind of way to open up this series. So,
yeah, I really also enjoyed seeing some of the relationship because I wasn't quite sure where they stood, like in relation to each other. I did not know anything. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was a great way to kind of start off with like an emotional, starting off with this emotional tone and then just going into the action of her being a badass and then being like, okay, everyone has already seen me and just like, I'm Wolverine now. And you're like, yes.
This was such an epic, this whole first issue was just like nonstop action essentially, other than the Wolverine scenes. Like, this whole thing was great. And her confidence of just like, the world knows it. Like, this is who I am. I'm here now. The people with their cell phones out and stuff in the background was good. And this is like this takes place in Paris, right? This is right off the bat. Yeah, great action scenes here.
Jason says, even though she's a clone, that's Pops. Yeah, I love that there's these familial ties that they feel, even though, right, she's his clone, and then you get later on her multiple clones. Mm-hmm. Hi, Universe X.
What up, Uni?
So jumping in kind of to the story, this is just like I didn't want to showcase like every single slide, but I, like you were saying, I love all of the action. We see that she's fighting this character. We don't know who this character is. And then we get Angel, which again, like that, getting in these side characters that we know, I think was so fun. I was like, oh, wait, what? Mm-hmm. I had no idea that they had any kind of relationship. And so when he came in, I thought that was really fun. I thought this scene was super cute.
Pats around the head.
And just super Tom Taylor. Like right before this, all of the panels are her just kicking butt. And then he comes in to help her and and then you get this, like her being kind of like vulnerable with him and having like a cute little moment. And then it's kind of back to the action.
Yeah. So this was something that I would actually like to get more details on, just like behind the scenes or backstory on Angel and their relationship, because we didn't get too much more other than kind of some of these earlier glimpses. But from what I've read Angel as, and again, so I don't know like this Angel per se, but the Angel that I've read in Claremont stuff from the 70s and 80s, I feel like at this point he would have been older, And I don't know, he just doesn't seem like the Angel I know in terms of like this
He never aged.
kind of snotty, rich kid, a rich guy, essentially businessman, Warren, like, I don't know. It just didn't see like this is like a kid here. So I don't know
Yes.
how that story kind of takes, fills into here now. So it's a little out of context for me, at least comparing to Claremont stuff, but obviously things have been rewritten, over and over again. So, but yeah, I liked it. I liked the relationship. I thought it was cool that they're together. And I was cracking up at this part here.
Yeah, I loved it. Well,
even like when she jumps and he's like, just because, anytime that there's like gravity involved and you tell, you're just jumping, like, it's not a good idea. Like you need to tell me ahead of time or plan it out a little more.
Well, and I think we get a first taste in that right before he saves her, just like how much he's kind of willing to lean into the fact that she has this healing factor. She's really comfortable just kind of not like offing herself.
Yeah, just taking the lead.
But just going for it and knowing that she'll be okay either way, but she's going to at least try to do what she can to stop the person that she's going after. And I agree with you. I would love to know more about the relationship or the origin of the relationship, because I was also just really surprised that the person that she was connected to, or the person she was in a relationship with, was Angel. It felt like I was like, wait, what? But also I'm kind of here for it.
Yeah. Totally.
Victoria said read the 2014 X-Men stuff. They get zip-zapped around the timeline. That's good to know. Yeah, because I definitely didn't have any context for Angel.
Yeah.
So, in this scene, we get like towards the end where we realize that the person who she was fighting is actually one of her clones and has died. And then they go into a genetics lab where they're the people who created her clones, which I feel like brushed over very easily. Like she wasn't fazed at all by the fact that they had cloned her several times over again, had gotten her DNA. But I love that it you see on her face in terms of the artwork when she discovers that it's her clone, you see this pain to witnessing, like, this is me dead, essentially. And then the next scene is the character, basically, I forget his name, but calling them experiments, and she's Captain Mooney, and pushing for them to be called people, especially as she herself is a clone, and just recognizing their humanity. So I feel like those kind of panels back to back were just really like playing on each other in the emotional sense too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It definitely every issue just seemed to have this twist. And again, like this one being, she reveals who this killer is essentially, and it's her. I enjoyed that because every end of each issue I was like, had no idea what was coming next, and didn't really know this. I never really heard this story before in terms of people talking about it or spoiling it or anything like that. So I really was like in the dark throughout this whole thing. One other thing too with this first issue was that I wanted to mention earlier when I first was describing my thoughts on this was there were definitely some like heavier moments throughout this series, like gun violence, heavier moments, and like seeing her get shot in the head towards the beginning, like that was I thought that was pretty heavy, and of course cool that she gets right up, afterwards. But at first, like you kind of knew it was coming, but at the same time you're like, all right, well, you see this red dot everywhere. Is it going to hit anybody? Is it going to hit her or not? And she's trying to rescue this guy. And then sure enough, like that one scene where her head's like cocked back and she got shot.
There's definitely a lot of gruesome moments in this series, which I find really interesting because it's completely juxtaposed like humor and lightheartedness, especially when Scabby is introduced. I feel like there is just kind of like this lot of, like innocence and goofiness that comes into play pretty consistently, which I love. But yeah, you have like this scene where like she's bleeding out of her head, and there's many more scenes where it is really graphic and violent. And I really like that you're getting all of that action, that that violence. I think it adds to the reality of what she's really playing through. But I agree. I didn't know anything going in like you did. So for me, I'm like, oh, wait, it's her.
Yeah.
That was such a big reveal for me. And then, we find out that she's been cloned like 6 times over again. You're like,
Right.
oh, okay, there's more.
Yeah.
And then, so this is where you kind of get more of, in these panels, you start to really realize, okay, here they are, her sisters essentially, and who passed away, and then and who are now attacking, or supposedly attacking, and are on these like revenge kills, which I don't know. I personally, like, from the moment that she's there in the genetics lab, I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like, not even a little bit. Like, I don't believe that these people are good. They just cloned you. You had no idea. Like, no one just does that out of like good faith.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I like the hey, what's up, Brian? I like the one scene there in the towards the beginning where or this is like part of issue 2 now, right? I think some of this
Yes, we're
when
into
she's visiting.
issue 2, yeah.
So yeah, I like that. There's a scene where they're first checking her in, and they have to like he's checking for scars, and then he has to like slice open her arm to see if it heals, just to prove that she is who she is and all this stuff. And I like at the end of that, one of those scenes where he's just like, yeah, sorry. He keeps apologizing. He's like, sorry again for the restraints and all that. And she's like, what restraints? And it like flashes over, and the handcuffs are not even on her. Yes. Like, I just loved that. It gave me such a viewpoint of like how badass she is, and just like how dangerous she can be, like slick, and very much like no simple thing can like hold her down or hold her back. So that was just like a glimpse, a little glimpse into that. So I like that they included that. But yeah, going into like, seeing more of this and these people that we're meeting, as we meet the creepy guy, what's his name? Was it Anthony? Robert Chandler, of the alchemics genetics. I mean, I was still questioning, like, their paint, I know Gabby's part of this. So like a part of me is like, okay, like, I think that the girls that they're showing up front are somehow like really part of the good team. And that's where, as you kind of mentioned, like my questioning of like, okay, maybe these people are really not good people, the guys that have, been doing all this stuff. But this was really cool. This is like the main story, right? Like, this is the main like setup of the event, the explosion, how they kind of paint the picture of like, hey, these are the bad guys, these 4 women, and so we need you to help us, stop this and do this. Hey, 2 guns. What up? And so because this event, like they refer to like throughout the rest of the series, this big explosion. I mean, people have died in this. We know that like all the top scientists have died, in this accident as well, and that they're refugees essentially. They're on the escape.
Yeah, they really raised the stakes with this. And what I love that you said is that you see in these beginning moments, like, oh, what restraints? You're getting a sense of her powers, because at this point, I just also wasn't even fully aware of like, what she's capable of. And I think, we see a bit of that in the first issue, just kind of like how like strong she is and how like fearless. And then in this, it's kind of like she's willing to play along with the rules, or what you think is like playing along, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh no, I don't actually need this stuff. Like, this is all a courtesy to you, which is what I also appreciated.
She's in full control. Yeah.
And then, so after the lab, we get Gabby in issue 2, which I loved. I when Angel drops her off at her apartment, and you can tell that she kind of tenses up, and she says like that smell. I'm like, she's about to fight some people, and then you find Gabby's like, yeah, I smell like you, and it's just so casual. And then you find out that Gabby is actually the one that sent her the anonymous note that brought Laura to Paris, which I really loved. Like, she is seeking her help and knows that Laura will care, especially as they're clones of Laura. I love this so much. Like, I feel like everything about her character design, how like lackadaisical she was, like throughout, she was like, yeah, whatever, like nonchalant.
Yeah, she definitely was much much more lighthearted, and like and the way she's like her design, her dress style, like the pants that she has, like the yellow, the bright yellow and all this stuff, I thought was really cool. This scene, really reminded me of when we had broken down Hawkeye. When the scene when what's her name visits her at her apartment, and shows up and cooks.
Yes. Oh, when Yelena
Yeah,
and the
Elena.
mac and cheese scene.
And yeah, the mac and yeah. So this reminded me of that. It was like a blend mix because there was even the scenes with her and her dog in the beginning, and it had to do with pizza. Like this whole, they're like eating pizza, and even Gabby's even like she bites into it. She goes, "How old is this pizza?" Like as she's about to eat it. And so it's just like it really gave me glimpses of like that again, kind of because as you said in the beginning, like you think it's this assassin or something like that, and it's really just like a sister type, a clone basically, and it's real casual. So it just made me think back to that scene from Hawkeye.
Yeah, I love that comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gabby's amazing.
Yeah.
You also get like confirmation that they can't feel anything, that they've taken away any feeling, and there is this kind of revenge plot happening. So it leads a little bit. You're like, wait, did they maybe do something do they have anything to do with the fire? But that was also really shocking, like that they can't feel anything. Like what a horrible experience to kind of go through. And then you see her and she's like, 13, looks like she's 13. Like it's absolutely is crazy, but I love it. And so yeah, here we get more of like the old, how is the old pizza? And then we get it to where Gabby ends up escaping and Laura's like ends up following her and Gabby leads her right to the other clones / sisters. And we meet Zelda and Bologna, which she frustrates me so much.
Bologna?
Yeah, through these issues, but understandably so, because they've all experienced insane trauma.
They're scarred.
Yeah. I thought that this was a really interesting way of introducing the characters. Like she stumbles upon them or follows them, and immediately you see Bologna's just like incredibly overly protective. Like, how could you? Zelda kind of moderating, and Gabby, of course, being like, yes, you want to keep us confined after being imprisoned.
Yeah. Yeah. I also I agree with you with Bologna, like drove me crazy in certain parts, because it's like in this particular scene or building up to when Laura does show up, she shoots at her, like she shoots her, and then immediately after that she's like, what do we do from here? Like now that they realize they didn't kill her, they can't kill her like that, and they're like, well, what do we do now? And they're like, well, now we talk. And Laura's like, what? That's all I was trying to do in the beginning. Like why pull the trigger and all this stuff? Like she's just a little like jump the gun kind of.
She's a little trigger happy.
Yeah.
And so they bring her, they kill her, and then shoot her, she comes back, and then almost immediately there's a whole swarm of guards, because they find out that they've been tracking Laura basically to their hideout. And what I like about this scene in particular is that you see Laura again trying not to fight, trying not to kill, trying to mediate. She just kind of wants a chance to correct things for both parties. Yeah. And with her kind of strength and her power, you kind of expect her to maybe be a little bit less of like a peacekeeper. And so I like that you're consistently seeing her try to keep the peace, or to at least hear both sides before making any kind of impulsive judgments. She's really like towing the line until she knows what's really going on.
Right. Much more cautious and playing that same point of what we were talking about earlier with the Wolverine scenes, and her kind of doing opposite of what her initial instincts are normally to do. So yeah, I like that. I like seeing that she has this kind of control. She's being smart, and she's even yelling at them there. She's like, what are you doing here? Like, I'm trying to work this out. She's yelling at Captain Mooney here.
Well, and so I don't think I took a screenshot of this. And what I absolutely love is like everyone starts fighting Wolverine, she comes and she basically kicks everyone's butt.
Yep. Yeah.
And Gabby cuts off. They get the fingers cut off.
This whole wicked scene here.
Yes. Here, let me see if I can make you big.
Yeah, I was saying, if you put your mouse on my picture at the underneath, there's a square at the top left. If you press that square, it should just blow my screen up.
Let's see. Solo layout. There we go. Guys, thanks for being patient with me.
So yeah, I posted this earlier today. There's the finger swipe.
Right there.
Wicked. Yeah. And all these scenes were just so awesome. You know, and the way it's like drawn out too. I like, oh yeah, even down at the bottom here.
I love it.
Yeah. So I just like it, that whole you know, I think it's 2 pages across 2 pages or whatever. But yeah, really, really cool stuff. Yeah, she's saying stop firing. No one has to die as she's swiping. So
yeah, and no one has to die. And she's just like radically hurts all of them, which I love, because she's like, okay, well, now you've pushed me to this point. I'm going to actually hurt you, so you don't think, you know, like that I can't. Right. And then the scene where Gabby, where they talk about what was it? One of the people who's they slice the fingers off. About him being, what if he wants to play piano? And Gabby goes and finds the fingers and places it back on. Like, just in case.
Yes, you're right. I almost forgot about that scene.
That was one of my favorite scenes. I just felt like I read that panel, and what's so funny, it's like, right, she's picking up like someone's severed fingers, but all I could feel and think was like, oh, that's so cute.
She's being very thoughtful. Yeah.
I love the Gabby claw. I also love just like as they get cloned, they're just like less and less claws. Like, what's gonna happen after will there be a clone after Gabby where there'll just be no claws? I also had no idea that Laura had like claws that come out of her feet.
Oh yeah, she's got one. One.
Yeah, I just feel like that has to be wildly uncomfortable, but you know.
Yeah, probably. But in a way, it's like almost like an edge on what Wolverine has. You know, on what Logan has. Like, sure, he has the 3, and that's probably like stronger in that sense, but he doesn't have any in the feet. So I kind of like that for her.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's the third.
Yeah, that's her third. Yeah. What's up, Eric?
Yeah, and so in this scene where no one has to die and Bellona's just like ready to kill, which I don't blame her. Like he was like their torturer and it kept them imprisoned for.
They're very angry. Yeah.
Yeah, which rightfully so.
Yep.
And I think that's like, how do you also talk someone off that ledge, right? When they just have been freed, now they're being chased after and they want to imprison them again, but they're supposed to take the peace floor out. So I get where Laura's coming from, but it's like, how do you really convince someone of that to show mercy after they haven't showed you any and are still not willing to?
Yeah. No, it's got to be challenging. So that's why it's interesting too. Yeah, just know that Laura's in the middle of this, trying to understand both sides and also trying to make it all work.
And then we get Taskmaster, which was amazing.
Yeah. Did not know about that. Hey, JD.
I thought what was really fun about Taskmaster was just because I honestly didn't know too much about this character until the Black Widow film. So that was really fun to see this character come in. And also that Taskmaster was like, okay, this is the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. I have nothing that deals with Laura. I don't want to actually fight Laura. Like, you could just like stop that. And then Laura proceeding to just beat Taskmaster's butt.
Yep. Yeah, that went right into the 4th issue, I think. Or sorry, the 3rd issue.
The 3rd issue. Yeah, because he ended again with you seeing Taskmaster in the end of the 2nd issue, and then it begins into the 3rd. Yeah,
I remember swiping to that because I remember I was reading. I had stopped after issue 2 because it was like late one night or whatever, and I'm like, oh man, but how can I stop at this? Like, Taskmaster's in this now. Like, I wanted to keep reading so bad, but I ended up reading another day. But yeah, this was great.
And then we get the whole car ride scene where, you know, he's coming after Laura and everyone, and then she's shooting. What I love about this specific scene, though, is again Laura showing that she is so capable of killing.
Mhm.
And I'm choosing not to. And then also telling Captain Mooney, like, really, I've kicked your butt so many times. You really want to keep doing this? Like, you are unconscious and I've crashed your car, also saved you. And like, how are you actually going to stop me? Like, that's not going to happen.
Yep.
I love that.
I'm curious how Captain Mooney got to become Captain Mooney, like how he got to that level, because there are a few different scenes just like that one too, where you're just like, he's not really smart, like he doesn't really, you know. I know what, like later in this we you know, he essentially leads Laura and the girls back to their secret lair or whatever,
yes.
And he's just like, hey, this is great, like, you know, and he's like, you idiot. No, like you just led them back to our secret lair is no longer secret, you know, like you like it's, he's like, oh, like he didn't even think of that.
100%. Yeah. There were so many moments where I was like, dude, like just let it go at this point. Like you've lost like so many different times. Like you're not winning this. And then we end that issue with meeting Doctor Strange. Like we see that during the car scene, Zelda has a bunch of like is it Zelda or Bologna has a bunch of bullet holes? I think it's Zelda. She's not doing well. She has a bunch of bullet holes in her.
The nanites you're talking about?
So is it the nanites that? Yes, the nanites.
So those little robot things
in their brains
are in, or they're in for each of them, but it's like happening to Zelda first, where she's dying. So that's where they're like first going for Strange and trying to seek figure out a way to slow this down, their death or whatever.
Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting to introduce Doctor Strange. Like it just to me wouldn't have been like the first character that I automatically like go to for this kind of issue. But then again, it makes sense, him being a brain surgeon and magical. It just like didn't really dawn on me, but I love seeing Doctor Strange at the end of the issue.
Yeah, when they walked up to the Sanctum Sanctorum, I was like, that to me was like reminding me of like Avengers film where I'm just like, yes, here we go. We're getting Doctor Strange. It was so exciting.
Yes, I love that. And then Jason's like, why is the cupboard winking at me? I loved all of them walked into the house and they're like, yeah, no, this house is not for me.
Yeah, that was great.
And then I love this too, you know, when Doctor Strange is like using his like magic to see like who they really are at their core, and then just seeing Gabby, and like this one has seen much evil, but she's innocent and fundamentally good.
Yeah.
It's so sweet, and just kind of seeing the varying degrees of really how they've internalized that violence and trauma. You have Zelda, like she's, you know, not so good, but she's like definitely not the end. And you have Bologna where, you know,
fiery rage.
She's just ready to shoot something, essentially.
Yeah, I like that this was the usage of the what is it, the eye of Agamotto.
Yes.
To be able to read them a little more.
Well, and I thought what was interesting about that is before he says, okay, he wants to evaluate them and see who he's helping, which I don't know why I kind of anticipated he'd just be like, yeah, of course, I'm just going to help Laura, you know, like without really considering, like who it is that she's trying to protect.
Yeah.
JP said the run. Hey, JP. Got me to start reading and collecting comics again. Really? This is a fantastic run. I'm way past issue 6 and I've been absolutely loving where Tom Taylor takes this story. So
he's the one that was like one of the first to really like point this series out to me, JP.
Oh, I love that. Well, and now we get to discuss it. So thanks for joining the conversation. And then this is for Jason. Jason was like, you need to put this panel up. But I love that, you know, when they're talking about how she's taken over the mantle, she's like, I know that there are a lot of people who disapprove. Guys on the internet, mainly. I was definitely like laughing in my bed as I was reading that.
Yep. Did you get the or is the scene in here where he reads her mind when she's like, "Why don't you take a look at me?" And it's the
I didn't take a screenshot of that, but we could
cool.
definitely chat about that
Yeah, I want to hold that up because
here.
that was really really cool as well. So this is just a great way to get a glimpse of like um her, everything about her in just the 6 simple panels. First of all, it's just beautiful. The layout is absolutely stunning, as he's like reading into her mind. And again, there are definitely some questions like that I don't fully know, but it was just, I thought, a really cool way to kind of lay out some of the, obviously this probably did a lot of um what do you call it, it probably really hit the fans hard in terms of like those who have really followed deeply as to what she's done. But yeah, this was just like illustration wise and art wise, I thought like a really beautiful panel.
It was gorgeous, and like you said, in those 6 panels, getting a little bit of just like her background and seeing the pain that she's gone through, and seeing how at this point, like right, we're seeing her on her like, I am better than this. I am, not going to kill anymore. But she had
Right.
a whole experience previous that finally got her.
Yeah, much darker.
Yeah, Nyx is her first appearance, which was on the bottom of that. That's like her in the corner, which is like that famous like cover that I keep seeing around.
Yeah,
Yeah, and now I'm like, I want to go and read that because I just want to know more about previous to what her origin is, and you get a little bit of that in here.
yeah.
Albert said that he hasn't read any of the
Albert,
issues. You should read them. They're so good.
definitely. Yep.
Yeah, and I what I thought was also really interesting right after Doctor Strange sees that is he's like kind of blown away by the amount of pain that she's gone through, which I think is really interesting
Oh
considering
yeah.
everything that we know the Avengers to go through, everything we know, at least from like the MCU. Like I'll be honest, I haven't been the first one to read a bunch of Doctor Strange, but you would imagine he has seen a lot of pain. He has seen a lot of tragedy, and for him to kind of be blown away or shocked by that, I think really speaks to how far she's come.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he mentions that yeah, shortly after the scene here. I know I know beings that have lived 1,000 years who have experienced half the pain and who have half the maturity. If you truly believe your clones can follow your path, then I will help. And as he's saying that he's going to help, the door knocks and she turns around and says, "Bill, yeah, this is goes into this."
And then we find.
Oh, that's right. This is the. I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot about this. Yeah, what the hell? It's like this big. They have they punch holes in the actual box, or what do they call this? He says you broke the seal. Oh, the cupboard. Yeah, the cupboard, is the
But
door.
what I was dying at is like there's a scene right before this where you just hear the like gun sound and they both like rush, and
Yeah,
it's just like Bologna is like again once again
doing
shooting
something.
the freaking cupboard because she's like
Yeah,
it's not like winked at her wrong.
yeah.
And what I thought was so funny is like he goes horrors in this like very stern serious way, and I just couldn't help but laugh because then Gabby's like what the heck, like why is that in your living room?
Yeah.
They've been like trapped in this lab, and they just don't really they have no idea who he is. They don't have any idea what he's doing, and so
Right.
it just feels so crazy. And I just love kind of dropping them into this setting where they have no idea like what to expect essentially, and it
it's
all
like
feels so ridiculous.
it's like a fun house to them almost. Like they don't know. Yeah, like yeah. I like where she says you couldn't hang a picture or something. You had to have this like cupboard full of horrors instead. It's great.
I love it.
Yeah.
I thought that these moments like breaking up those like the tonal shifts were really nice. And
Yeah.
then here we get the monster. They're fighting them, but ultimately what ends up happening is that we see that Zelda's dying, and she's on the side of the on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And so like kind of like straight back, like we get all this jam-packed action, and then it's getting serious and heavy again.
Yeah.
And Steven teleports them. And then we finally get I love this scene so much. They go to the hospital,
Yeah.
and he just posts them outside. Like, he refuses to let them in because he's like, after everything you did to my house, he's like, there's no way I'm letting you around.
You're gonna break everything. Right.
I thought that was so funny because it also reminds me of, like, obviously at least Bologna is an adult, but she often feels like such a kid to me. Like that one that you have to constantly monitor. You like look away, something's breaking. Yep. And it's like, no, you can't be around the expensive things. We can't have you touch.
Yep. Yep. She's like a child. Yeah.
JP was saying Gabby is such an amazing character. Totally agree. I think she's,
heck yeah.
I obviously really love Laura, but I have such an affinity for Gabby, at least because of the series.
Yeah.
And Victoria brings up like a scene. The character is Pinocchio from Marvel Comics. She's Samurai Sword trying to become a real little girl. So where that ends up coming later, but Laura has a special connection to the Pinocchio story that her mom's reading, and it's very emotional and so beautiful.
Nice.
And again, just like seeing scenes where you see the strength and kind of intimidation that Laura can instill in many, many characters throughout this story. I feel like she oftentimes is going like someone's about to question her abilities, and then like, okay, never mind, like I'm just gonna back off. Like even Doctor Strange is like, no, it's fine, actually you could just stay in there, which
do your thing.
I really love seeing how other characters are interacting with her and really have a respect for her in a way that we don't always see for female characters.
Yeah. I like that. All it took was just the eyes there, like, and I like that it really took a panel to zoom in at a moment like that to like really get the point across. Like, I'm staying here. And he's just like,
do not test me.
Yeah. Great.
And then we get further a flashback for Zelda. When we bring it all the way back to the first issue, when she's like, you saw your sister in Paris. So removing that any aspect, like, okay, of just like them being clones and them having not known each other previous, she's like, already bringing those familial ties. And her speaking, she's like, I've watched my sisters die. They obviously wanted them to have the healing powers, and they were just like testing them, like experiments and in demonstrations where they're just like shooting at them, which is horrible. You're just basically getting treated like an animal in a cage.
Yep. This is where like some of those darker moments that I was mentioning in the beginning, like this is definitely dark. Like just that putting yourself in their shoes of like going through something like this and knowing that you are just a test, a rat, in a laboratory kind of thing. This is wild. Yeah,
I think Tom Taylor does such a good job of being able to talk about these heavier topics of, what is like, what makes a person, they can't feel pain, and yet we're watching them die. We're seeing them try to save. There's still feelings of like love and care. I think he does such a good job of bringing in these like layered plots that don't feel too heavy-handed. You're not like sitting here like, well, I'm, this is super depressing only, because then he's bringing you back up throughout it. So it feels like you're constantly gripped. And it feels really cinematic. Oftentimes in that sense, because I feel like with films, you're often feeling a variety of emotions. It's not just like this like one note. And I think he does a really good job of like write these scenes where you're like, oh, this is super emotional, and then it kind of expands back out to the action and the humor.
I totally agree. It gives you that roller coaster of mixed emotions for sure.
Yeah. And then right back at it. So we have that scene. And then you have Bologna and Gabby who are out standing guard. And this is one of my favorite aspects of Gabby, as how her character is written.
Yeah.
Where she's trying to calm Bologna down, but she has this like really adorable innocence, but she could just wreck a person. Like,
right.
basically tells this doctor nurse, this is basically everything that's happened from like top to bottom. He's like, that absolutely makes no sense. I have no idea, but I'm just gonna walk away from this.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know how to respond to that. And she's like, blurting out like, we have a wizard friend who's here to save her life of our older clone, and like all these terms. And he's just like, wait, hold on. Like, there's a wizard, there's a clone, there's, he's like, I don't know how to answer that.
I love it. And then they get teleported. They find out that there's nanobots in their brains that is basically stopping them from, I think that's the thing that's stopping them from feeling pain. And so Doctor Strange can no longer help them and zaps them to Pym Labs, laboratories.
Yeah, I was so pumped. Again, this is another one of those moments where, and obviously it's the end of an issue, but like, we get introduced to another character that I was just so pumped for. And again, it reminded me of like MCU's type stuff when we see a character at the end of a film, or, something like that, or a credit scene or something like that. And you're just like, what, next issue, we're getting this, So I was really excited to see. I didn't know, like at this point, we don't know if it's Ant-Man necessarily or, where, obviously we'll get into it, but yeah, it was a cool little hint to the next issue there.
Yeah, I loved it. Again, you're like, okay, now I need to keep reading, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we get Bellona again, very trigger happy, wants to shoot absolutely everything. She's absolutely ridiculous. I was like, why are you shooting this?
Yeah, this is great.
And then we find out it's Wasp, which I thought was really, really fun. Like, just to get more, I think this whole series is obviously with Laura and then the clones like filled with really strong and interesting women, and then to get Wasp was super fun. And the first realization when she knows that Doctor Strange zapped them there.
I love that you included this, because I think these may be my favorite panels of the entire series. I really enjoyed this scene. Yeah,
I love that. So good. She's just like, the audacity that you have to just drop these people to steal my tech. Like, what?
Yeah, she's even like shushing, like she's like putting her hand up and like, hold on 1 second. She goes, what are you? He goes, it's Janet. Of course you're busy. You're always busy. I don't care what dimension you're protecting us from right now. She goes, you have my number. The next time you want to teleport desperate armed people onto my property, you call ahead. It may not sound very Sorcerer Supreme, but it's common courtesy, Stephen. And she just like hangs up the phone. She's like, and why was Doctor Strange helping you steal my... Oh, no, she goes into the rest of the scene. But yeah, I just love that she like snaps at him, and just seeing their relationship, I guess, a little bit is like, yeah. I want to, like, that makes me want to know more about that relationship, and just read more of this time period of whatever else, the Avengers type stuff or whatever of this time period. So
like, just give me more Steven and Wasp just bickering. Like, I want like several panels of that. And I love that she's just like, so like, this is kind of whatever. She's like, I know that this Laura's like, this must look weird. And she's like, I'm an Avenger. Excuse you. Like, who do you think I am? This is a 2. Like, I don't...
This is like a 2. That's great.
I thought that was so fun. And then we cut scenes essentially, and we're back at the genetics lab, and he's just telling Captain Mooney, you're pathetic, like you haven't gotten anything right. But you also get confirmation, like further confirmation, that they're doing something extremely shady, because they don't want the truth about the program to get out, or they'll get shut down essentially, and they'll go to prison. Right. So I thought that it just like raises the stakes even more, and it further shows that you're like, all right, bad people all around.
Yeah. And this is him kind of giving him his last chance.
Mm-hmm. And then we are in Zelda's body, which I love. They're like, the little blood cells are like floating around, and the little nanotechs, and you just basically watch Wasp and Laura like destroy all of the little bots.
Yeah, this was cool. I really like I mean, this is something I'd also like to explore more of, is just more of Ant-Man and the Wasp, and that whole territory of the abilities that they can do, and how obviously they can shrink down, but even more so the idea of like taking Wolverine, taking Laura here, and making her. That's just dangerous, right? To be able to have her running around inside somebody. And I know we're going to get to some other yeah. And I know we'll get to some other scenes, but I just love how the team up between her and Wasp, and when she enlarges them again while she's like punching and stuff like that. And that's essentially like Ant-Man's move and stuff too, like being able to like, go large and knock somebody out at the same time. Like it's a really cool combination of things.
I loved it.
But yeah, as you mentioned, like, so this is like the nanites that we've been talking about, the solution that Doctor Strange had kind of hinted them to this whole time. And their job is to take out these things, but there's like thousands of them. There's like a lot of them.
There is, but they end up coming to them, which I thought was like,
Convenient.
a really convenient way. I love that she's like, use your manners. Wasp, Doctor Strange, so good. And I love that, okay, this had me going, they get her there. They've gone through this whole issue just trying to get Zelda better, right? Even from like the previous issue, the end of and she's starting to feel again. And it's a very emotional moment. I also love that Gabby's like, teeny tiny warrior women are fighting for your life against the teeny tiny robots in your body.
Well, the fact that before that, Bologna was like, she's like, it's really hard to explain, or she's like, it's a little hard to explain. She's like, try me, and then she's like, well, and then she just like goes into that teeny tiny thing. Great. She's like, oh.
And I love that it's just like Bologna's like, actually, you see her smile for once, and Zelda's like, you should like keep smiling, it suits you. Pulling on the heartstrings.
Yeah, you're right. We didn't really get to see her smile throughout any of this.
She's just shooting everything.
Right. Yeah, it's either she's shooting or she's trying to survive, or she's, it's all violence essentially. So this was kind of a nicer moment here.
It was and there's like not a lot of moments where there's these all of the clones, especially like right at this point, Laura isn't with them, so you're seeing a private moment with all three of them, and there's just like the sense of relief. Like that feels like a really beautiful moment for Tom Taylor to just destroy it. Like, and absolutely like the next panel, like that's like, I was like screenshotting and I was like, this just like feels like you've done me dirty. Moonies found them because the nanobite nano robots, once they were attacked, they sent off a signal essentially, and
where they found their location.
This was awful to watch.
Like even this, like Captain Mooney just can't get right. Like, he ruins a special moment, like he's an idiot. He does things wrong. He's clumsy. And even this, like he comes in and ruins a terrible moment.
I just love that Gabby is like, let me just like headbutt you. Like she just like grabs him. He's like, also don't be ridiculous, which blows my mind. I'm like, you were their guard. You've been the person like responsible for like torturing them, but you also know what they're capable of, and like consistently is underestimating them. Like I don't understand that even a little bit.
No, right.
And then we get again right back like straight into the emotion where Zelda like pleads with Laura to not hold back like she has been, and to teach them a lesson, and telling her that they can't own them. And I thought that was really interesting, because I feel like Zelda was kind of, towing the line a little bit. Like she wasn't outwardly like, we need to go kill them. That was like specifically like Bologna was like, I'm going to murder these people. Like they've done us wrong. And I feel like, we're also seeing Laura resist that side of her so consistently to get to this point where Zelda's pleading on her deathbed to ask her to stop resisting.
No, this was definitely a deeper scene here, and you could just see, especially like the tears in her eyes and just the anger that she's had built up. You can feel her emotion.
Yeah, Zelda was great. She didn't have to die. We got her like healthy for about 2 seconds. It was just so yeah. I was like, really? Like we couldn't have even gotten like half of an issue. It was like 2 panels and then like she's out.
Yeah. Yep.
And then Mooney
this is
killing
great.
yet again. He escapes. And he's like, oh yeah, they let me go. Like, why would they?
He's like so angry at him. What is this where he says the it's not on this one, but I think he just says like, yeah, it's not so secret now or something like that. He goes, yeah, you think you escaped from Wolverine and the founding Avenger,
and then it's like she's here to hunt you. Like, and you just get this panel, and I absolutely love this panel. It's just like, yes, again, Laura is a badass, and everyone needs to know. If like you haven't realized it by this point, like she's strategic, and that furthers in this issue, which I really, really loved. I thought Tom Taylor did a really good job of like, at least for me, I will say I'm not one to see often plot twists coming. Like I'm just not that person that could like read a thriller and then is like all of a sudden like, this is the person who's going to kill this person at the end or who is the murderer. But so I'm easily like,
I'm the same way. I don't try to speculate in any way. I just go with it. Oh wait, before you go on, can you go back a second? I wanted to show this panel as well. This was when they come out of Zelda's body, and this is like what I was talking about, where Wasp uses her abilities to make them like large again, and she ends up like swinging. Laura like swings at Captain Mooney as she gets larger, and I just love these scenes. I love the I mean, we've even seen these scenes in like the Ant-Man and Wasp, like them throwing a punch the way they do with this, but just knowing that this is Laura doing it is even just more awesome. So that was really cool. And this is where, you know, how he gets all those bruises basically for what you were just showing before.
I love it. I honestly didn't even really think about in that scene, like you were saying, that it's reminiscent of like the Ant-Man movies and like seeing her kind of almost adapt to these like powers, other people's powers, but like being even more of a badass because she has like the claws coming out.
And I just like how it was drawn. Like you see her little body, bigger body, and then like big, and her just like doing this uppercut, you know, kind of things. Really, really cool layout.
I really liked the art throughout this whole series.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so then they're off to attack the genetics lab. And so this was a scene where I was like, right, like, are we just really gonna kill off all of the clones? Like, there's Pelona, she's about to get off. Zelda just got off. Like, you know, like what is happening? I'm like upset by it. Like, even though like she's frustrating to watch.
Right. Yeah.
And then immediately we see that it's Laura pretending to be Pelona, which is fantastic chef's kiss. Like
totally. I didn't. Yeah. This is going back to what you were saying before, like not always like or not, you know, catching the stuff before it comes or whatever, and just kind of being caught in the surprise. I was totally like, oh sweet. Like this is, I did not see this coming. So I was pumped for that they even figured that out.
Yeah, I was that guy in the lab coat going, oh, shit.
yeah. Wearing the wig and everything, like change of clothes. It was well done.
It was so good.
Yeah.
And then this scene I thought was so funny to me. They just have like kicked everyone's butt, and then she's like, oh yeah, just give me the phone, and she calls Shield and is like, oh yeah, I just have all this incriminating evidence, like, by the way, and you find out she's talking to Director Hill for Shield, and she's like, yeah, we're just gonna hurt them a little bit to make us feel better.
Yeah, she puts that in there, like, not gonna kill them, but just gonna hurt some of them to make us feel better. Yeah, that was great.
Which was awesome. I loved all of the scenes, like watching all three of them fight. And then we get this. And so I mean, this I definitely feel like I saw coming. Bologna throughout the entire, like from when you meet her to this moment, you know that she wants to kill Mooney, which I
Yeah,
don't blame her. But just like her being like Gabby. And I love that, Gabby's obviously been through all of the training, has been
sure.
cloned, and yet she's still a child and has that innocence. So she doesn't want to further traumatize her. And she's like, get around the corner. I
Yeah.
don't want you to see this. Even though, right, they've killed, all of them have killed at this point, I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
this
was
was
a
heavy.
little like, no.
I know, I know. I was still
What'd
hoping
you
that
think?
like there was gonna be something that stopped it, or stopped Bologna from doing it. But yeah, these were definitely like moments that I was reading and I really paused and like took in just what was being said here, what was being asked of, again, Gabby to go around the corner and her, like you mentioned, like keeping her innocence was, or what's left of it anyways, of her younger years, as thoughtful as it is for her sister to ask for this, it's still like, I didn't want her to do it. Like, I just thought
Yeah.
maybe she would, I actually thought that, I don't know, Laura was going to show up or she was going to just prove her point somehow else or something. But
Yeah, I was like hoping that maybe Laura would step in, but I feel like there's been so many moments where Laura has stepped in that it's like it makes
yeah,
sense that a scene where she's finally alone to kind of to do it.
yeah,
I also felt a little like Captain Mooney, not that he didn't deserve it. He totally
true.
deserved
Yeah,
to get off.
yeah, yeah,
But he's so dumb like throughout this that I was like, really, if there was like anyone, it was like the other dude. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
he deserved it. Like, yes, he
yeah.
totally deserved it. But I was like, he just failed epically so many times that at the end I wasn't like, oh man, I want you to just like kill him. I was like, take out the other dude. Like the other
Yeah,
guy just seems like
that's a
more
good
like a
point.
jerk. Like I
Yeah,
was,
no, you're right,
and
because
then
he was
he lives.
right, right. He's the more evil guy. This guy really is like, he couldn't hurt a fly if you asked him to, kind of. Like he's like just stumbling always.
Stumbling through
It's a
it.
good point. Yeah, yeah.
And then right back at it with like pulling on all my heartstrings, telling her that
Mhm.
every time you look in the mirror to never forget to smile. I was like, don't leave though. Just
Yeah.
stay with them. Like they'll still love you.
So I was kind of surprised at this too, that she was leaving afterwards.
Yes.
I didn't get that there was any other hint that she had any other plans for anything after this, or that that was even an option. So I was like, oh shoot, she's actually just gonna go. And the
Yeah.
way that they're talking, Gabby's like, what am I gonna do with that? Like she's already assuming like I'm not going with you. So the only thing in the back of my head though that made sense, because like again, like I know that Gabby is a main character in the Marvel universe, was I was kind of thinking like, all right, maybe the other sister dies as well, because like we don't really hear from that character, or at least to my knowledge, I don't know that sister the way I know Gabby,
Yeah.
in terms of hearing their name and stuff. So a part of me did wonder like, how are they going to write this other character off? Is it going to be another death? I assumed at least one was going to die.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then I was wondering like how this was going to end. So yeah, like I guess it just didn't cross my mind to think like that was an option that they're just going to leave. And it's interesting because, and now I'm curious, and I mean I know you've read further on, but like I'm curious maybe down the road if she comes back, or maybe that's a good setup as a writer to say, okay, I have some options down the road. I don't know how many issues this is altogether, but I think it's like 30 something issues. But it is a good, yeah, it's a good tactic to kind of allow yourself to set something up down the road with the same character, I guess. So
100%, because it's like, okay, where does she go? What happens to her? And like you said, I wasn't really sure where she was going. It's like I wasn't sure what the motive in this scene was. As you're reading it, is she leaving just because she knows that Laura had asked her not to kill, and then she kills Mooney and like doesn't want to face the consequences? Like what is happening for her in the scene? I mean, you shortly find out after, but like as you're reading it, Jason, hold your horses, people. But and then we get this guy who definitely should have been off. Like if you're gonna kill Mooney, you got to kill this guy. That was like how I was feeling.
Yeah.
But I again loved it, just like driving everything home, I think full circle with like how he talked about them as experiments, and Laura just, being like, okay, I'm going to show you what it feels like to feel powerless. Like I could kill you right now. I could torture you. I could do all of those things and treat you as an object. And she's like, I own you. And I was like, yes, you do own him.
Yeah.
JP, 35 issues plus an annual. Yeah.
Ooh,
there's
nice.
a lot.
Yeah, that's a good amount. Yeah, that's a great point, these scenes here. And by the way, thinking back to that, seeing her foot with the blade and everything now makes me more uncomfortable when I think about it. Like,
right? I just was like, how do you walk with like the little blade out? It just there's only 1, 2. I feel like if you had more, it would like level you. I don't know. I just think about that. It feels uncomfortable.
But yeah, I like these scenes. I like what you're pointing out here too, with like don't forget the generations issues too. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I definitely like making him feel that same helplessness that he had done to so many others. Like, at least there was that. And again, this also goes back to the beginning, what we were talking about before with Laura not killing when her instincts might feel like she should or could.
Yes.
And really showing her strength in holding herself, reserving herself from doing a lot of this stuff. So I appreciate that they kept that theme. Almost every issue we kind of see that in some way, shape, or form, where she's trying to be at peace or trying to go another route other than just doing what she does best, technically.
Yeah. So, exactly. Yeah. And then she kind of gives Gabby a moment with her alone. And I love this scene specifically because I love any scene that really shows like the age of Gabby, like her being a young kid, where she's kind of amazing, where she's like looking up to her as like an older sister and is like, I really want to hurt you, but Wolverine wants me to be a good person. Zelda wants me to be a good person. And despite everything, she's like, I want to be a good person. So you see like her trying to really hold on to this innocence and like wanting to forge that path that the other women in her life want for her. But then she's like, I want you to know. And then this just kills me.
Yeah.
I loved it so freaking much.
Look at her eyes. Like,
Gabby is awesome. It's like, you should never forget that she could just mess you up. Like, I love that so much.
It's like a stare down, almost like giving him the nightmare of like, remember this face kind of thing, And he's
like sweating. He looks terrified. I was like, yeah, that's right. Like,
yeah, eat it up. Yeah.
I love it. And then you have this really cute little scene afterwards, which brings it also back to what her and Logan were talking about in the beginning, where she says like, you're the worst there is at what they wanted you to do. That's pretty impressive. Where, Logan's like, you're the best.
Yeah.
But you're fighting against it. So I thought that was like such a cute and like fun parallel to bring back, like her taking on this role of like being like this big sister / mother figure to Gabby. And then, so you kind of just like sets, that's why she's the honey badger. Yeah. I love it. But so I loved how they ended with them to here for the subsequent issues, but the issue actually ends. I thought this is where it would have ended.
Yeah,
with
right.
Chimera.
Chimera.
Chimera. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how do you pronounce that? I'm like, when you read the name and you're like, oh, I totally know how to. Like, I actually have to say that out loud.
Yeah.
And that's where Bologna has been, and so I cliffhanger for issue 6. You're just like, okay, who is this woman? Why is Bologna with her? Why does nobody know about her? And where is this going to go? Which I know where it's going because I've read.
Well, yeah. But I never even heard of that character. Chimera.
Me either.
So that was to me, I mean, the way she's got her own vehicle, or was a helicopter or whatever this helicopter type thing is. Clearly they have money. Like, I was thinking it was like a SHIELD agent or something. The way that they showed this, because before this was like the final splash page and the reveal, but before this it was just showing Bologna sitting on the other side and just like talking, and all you did was hear this voice, explaining, saying like, yeah, you did everything we told you to do. We gave you your moment. Now you got to bargain on your side of the deal. So like, she was like, this was a deal, essentially. So now she's in debt now at this point. So yeah, interesting stuff. And definitely left me wanting to continue to read. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So kind of with how that ended, I'm not sure if you've read any further, but for it being these first 6 issues and our first introduction to Laura Kinney, what are your overall thoughts, like after you read that, like where Tom Taylor left us?
Yeah, like just general thoughts about Laura. I love her. Like I want to read more of her and just get to know more of her. And I've over these past like couple months, I've really started to come around more and more to putting Wolverine up into like my top 3. Which Wolverine, like I just feel like it's always so typical of like, oh, Wolverine like is everybody's favorite, And I've always been like trying to like kind of look elsewhere. And also I only have as much experience with Wolverine as I do with everybody else, because I've only been reading the Claremont stuff. I've never like took the time to read just Wolverine. So with all that said, like getting to like him more recently, and I think the X of Death, X of Life's issues have been helping that interest as well. Going into this has also made me so curious about more on Laura, and also Laura and Sync from the newer X-Men stuff as well.
Yes.
The relationship between them. Like I've already liked her because of that stuff and the vault scenes and stuff like that. So yeah. Good. So getting this glimpse of more of her personality, it obviously shines here. And again, I appreciate like the human side of things of her, like just the real life struggles that she's having, the fact that she knows she could easily kill and assassinate whoever she wants to, but that she wants to do good. She wants to do what's right. She wants to do it on her terms, and only to those who are bad or deserve it, or whatever the case is. So it just shows that she has such a heart as well. And she also at the same time, she's kind of a kid in a way, at least at this time of her life, and she's learning that in of itself. So I'm excited to kind of see more of how she continues to be the Laura that I know her as now, in the newer Hickman stuff, and and just all the stuff I've missed in between that. So I know there's a lot. So
there's so much for him, like me as well.
Yeah, and I think it helps too that it's Tom Taylor. Obviously, like Tom Taylor's like, I mean, I would love if Tom Taylor wrote about all the different mutant characters that are out there. Yeah, right. That would be awesome. So, and who knows, maybe one day, but yeah, so give me more of this for sure. I will definitely be reading more of this. And if you happen to be breaking down the next 6 issues or whatever you plan to do, let me know. Cause
I 100%, I plan on breaking down this whole Omni. Like I am on the whole like Wolverine train. Nice. Yeah, this is X-23 series. It is so good. You got to read The Life of Wolverine, Infinity Comic on Marvel Unlimited. I haven't dived into any of the Life or Deaths. I have them sitting. I haven't read them yet. But kind of, I only have experience with Wolverine in the sense of like some of the Hickman aspects.
Right.
But mostly just like the random older Chris Claremont issues that I have, but I tend to have been like reading ones that are focused on other characters. So Wolverine tends to be like
a secondary
character.
That's
so,
how I felt. Yeah.
Don't really know a lot about Logan. I don't have like an emotional tie to him. And then when I was reading the vault scenes with her in Sync, I was way more connected and cared about her in Sync, but she comes off oftentimes is really like distant and cold. And I
can see that.
Victoria, I am not seeing y'all call her clone name. But what I love about Tom Taylor is that he brings in this humanity and it makes her just a character that's so easy to fall in love with. And I mean, that's just really his gift in general. Like anything Tom Taylor writes about whatever character, all of a sudden I really like that character. Could really give like less of a crap about Superman, like really ever. read Son of Kale Ale, and then
Yep.
you know, I didn't
I love
continue
it.
with it because I don't like love, but I was like, okay,
Yeah.
if anyone's gonna get me to care about Superman, it's gonna be Tom Taylor. So
Yeah.
I love that he wrote this story, because in every issue that like I'm binging this, kind of like how I felt like I was with Hoxpox, because in like at the end of every issue, I'm like, I just want to keep reading. Like there's never like an issue where I'm like, oh yeah, like that was fine. I feel like he does such a good job of defining personalities for characters, where it doesn't feel like, you know, someone is there and feels really like it falls flat for me. I feel like every character is really robust, and you're like, oh, okay, like I really like Gabby, I like Zelda, I like Bologna. There's no one that I'm like, oh, you know, they can kind of die. You're like, no, I don't want anyone to die. I want them all to survive.
Right.
You've written them so well. So
Yeah, you care about them.
You know, obviously I've read past issue 6. Like I am excited for you to keep reading, because it gets so crazy. The series gets really good. I felt like to start off with these first 6 issues, though, there's so much action. It felt really cinematic in scope, and I love that you were getting a lot of like Doctor Strange, Wasp, these side characters, because I think it's expanded the world for me. And I honestly haven't read too many like Avengers comics, except some of the older ones. So like seeing like the MCU characters, or like these characters that I know from the MCU films, like being featured in this run was really cool.
Yeah, agreed.
But I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on, you know, some of the other issues. Do you want to let everyone know kind of anything that you have coming up?
I have Comic Collector Origins this Saturday. I'll be talking to my friend Patrick, BLC, Big Lion Cat. Definitely looking forward to that. Got to hang out with him in Baltimore last year, so already had some opportunity to get to know him a little bit. So that'll be fun. It'll be 2:00, and then actually hanging out with Victoria, who's in the chat, and we'll be streaming with John along with his 2 children, Kate and Charlie, as we break down the Ultimate Spider-Man by Bendis. So really excited for that as well. That's also going to be this Saturday at 4. Other than that, I feel like, 100 things going always.
Always. All of the streams.
But I want to thank you for having me, because this is great. I know we talked about this for a while now, and any chance to team up and talk about some mutants, I'm always down. Yeah, no, thank you for doing my first like stream with slides and all of this stuff. You did great. I was so nervous, so I really appreciate you doing this with me. And of course, this Saturday I will be doing a community stream. I wasn't able to last Saturday, so this Saturday morning I start at 9, and if it goes till 11, that's fine. That's usually about my time that I'll peace out and probably go feed myself some lunch or breakfast. Nice. JP said Justin's only on YouTube 15 hours a day. He's a slacker. I need to catch up. I'll be on his show on Monday, actually, with Jason and John. We're breaking down Black Hammer, the first series of Black Hammer. So I feel like you're breaking down every series with everyone. I don't know how you are reading so much. I'm like behind in everything. I'm like, I picked up my weekly comics, and I'm like, I'm not even caught up to like the last 2 weeks. Yeah, John was questioning me the other day. He's like, "How are you?" Because I posted about I was just on Moonlit's channel talking about Philadelphia, which also was amazing as well. But yeah, he's like, "How do you?" He's like, "They're all great series. Don't get me wrong." He's like, "But how are you reading like all these things?" And I'm just I just don't sleep much. That's all. I duplicated myself. Well, thank you so much to everyone in the chat for joining. If you're watching the replay, let me know in the comments what you think of All New-Wolverine. If you're joining in the read, I will definitely be back, hopefully with Justin, and hopefully we'll get Victoria, and there's some other people that I know who really love this series who I want to get on to help break down the Omni, because this thing is thick. Yeah. And it's so good. I will definitely be finishing it probably like in the next week. Like you can't stop me. But yeah, thanks everyone, and have a good rest of your night. Absolutely. Peace.